Hello and welcome to Worldwide Report. Our programme today begins with a report from our economics correspondent, John Summers, who has been looking at the latest World Cities survey. John, the survey covers a lot of topics. What are you going to focus on?
I'm going to look at three areas. First, the cost of living. Second, salaries. And third, working hours.
Right. So which city is the most expensive city in the world?
Well, I expect there are a lot of listeners who already know the answer. Tokyo. Tokyo is the most expensive city in the world, followed by Zurich, then Hong Kong, which are both very expensive, but a lot less expensive than Tokyo. If we take 100 as the index for comparison, Tokyo's score is 142.7, a lot higher than Zurich's.
142.7 for Tokyo, almost 50% higher than Zurich.
That's right. The cost of living in Hong Kong is slightly lower than in Zurich. Hong Kong's index is 97.5. London is quite a lot cheaper than Hong Kong at 74.1.
74.1 for London. So London is almost 50% cheaper than Tokyo.
Yes, quite a big difference. Compared with other cities in Europe, London is a little pricier than Milan, but much cheaper than Paris. Paris, which has an index of 87, is twice as expensive as Budapest at 43.4. Prague, with an index of 34.8, has the lowest cost of living of all the cities in the survey.
34.8 for Prague, so less than half the cost of living in London. But if you live in a city where the cost of living is high, salaries are also high, aren't they?
Yes, that's generally true, although salaries in Tokyo are not as high as in Zurich, where people earn the best salaries in the world. Tokyo's index is 89, compared to Zurich's 100. The figure for London is 41.7, slightly lower than Madrid and Milan. And the figure for Paris is a little higher, 49.6.
So, like the cost of living, salaries in Paris are also higher than in London. 49.6 for Paris and 41.7 for London.
That's right.
How do working hours in these cities compare?
Well, as you would expect, working hours in the Far East are much longer than in Europe, with the exception of Tokyo, where people work only a few hours more than in London. 1,893 hours a year compared to London's 1,880.
Not very different. 1,893 in Tokyo and 1,880 in London.
No, the figures are quite close. The city that has the longest working hours is Seoul, whose people work an average 2,302 hours a year.
2,302, so quite a lot longer.
Compared to the average for Europe, certainly. Paris and Milan are about average for Europe, and Madrid is a little lower at 1,721. Working hours in Dusseldorf and Copenhagen are much lower than the European average. The figure for Dusseldorf is 1,682, and for Copenhagen, 1,669.
So, Copenhagen's 1,669 hours is the lowest figure of all the cities in the survey.
Sure is.
Thank you, John. So, if you've ever wanted to know where you can earn the most or work the least, we've given you the answers. And now we look at what's happening in the world stock market.